Now, I don't use these words lightly when I say a UK hip-hop legend in the building. How you feeling about that, Roots Manuva?
Just honored to hear those words.
Witness the fitness, the competent living.
Again and again and again, we must have the Roots Manuva. New days.
So the history goes back to what was it, like the 90s, the early 90s, the mid 90s? Where did it start around for you?
Yeah, releasing records started in the 90s. But the history goes back to when I was, I don't know, seven years old and first seeing hip hop on telly, and then growing up in South London and seeing, my interpretation of hip hop in the flesh wasn't actual hip hop. It was local sound systems.
Of course,
and it was people like Tipper Irie and Daddy Colonel, but it was local ragga sound systems that really. That was my hip hop before I even knew what hip hop meant.
Because like nowadays, a lot of the current UK rappers, they can look back to like the early noughties, MCs in the 90s as guys like you for inspiration, like the forefathers. But at your time, you didn't have UK rappers that was maybe inspiring you, right?
Oh no, there was as I said, that influence from ragga, and then it was right on the cusp as more UK-based people started to turn to something that would be more recognizable as the early incarnations of UK hip-hop. A lot of people shy away and say, oh, that time was terrible, but I can stand up and say, no, actually that was the formative years, and without that you wouldn't have what you have now. Without people like Smiley Culture, you wouldn't have no Dizzies, you wouldn't have no Tiny Tempers. The influence that the British interpretation of UK MC culture has had on the world it's not been documented properly.
Yeah. Why do you think it hasn't been documented properly?
That's how
the era, just maybe.
That's how it goes. That's the turnover of the historical context of the culture. But it's sound system is forever. Sound system is beyond just the context of a man and his turntables thumping out beelines. It's a mystical science that goes back to way back before the concept of time even landed in the minds of humans.
So what would you say are some of the main differences between what was going on in the UK then, from an MC standpoint, a rapping standpoint, to now?
The technologies were more basic. Back then, just to have a couple of turntables and a mixer made you a big don in your area. Now people take that for granted because we now live in a time of YouTube and Twitter, and everybody can do everything literally by themselves. So I think that the technology is definitely a big factor.
All right, let me say some things as well, because we threw around the legendary status before, and I don't want to just say this based upon numbers, but as an independent artist, you are a UK rapper who has at least two certified albums, one being gold and one being silver, right? In the UK. Now that's quite a feat. Like, that is...
Yeah, and it's a feat that is, as you said, it's not that regularly achieved on an independent label. So you have to weigh up what that means, in comparative to what's going on to other situations with bigger budgets and so forth. It's real.
Did you, when you was making those albums, did you feel like they were going to be received like that?
Not from the first. For the very first album, I didn't have a clue. I was just doing what I was doing. It was just a hustle. If it worked, it worked. If it didn't, it didn't. So it took me a while to catch up with with actually the mindset of thinking, what, I could actually do something and get certification for it. I can actually record something and expect from the off to sell a decent amount.
Now, anyone who's listened to your music catalogue will definitely see that there's a big influence of, the sound system culture, reggae music, dub. And you're old enough and you've been in the industry long enough to know that the late 90s, the early noughties, there were a lot of UK rappers that were criticised for using American accents. So I wanted to ask you, was there ever times throughout your career where you was like, I need to make sure I preserve the Britishness in what I do? Was that something you was conscious of ever?
It wasn't an out and out, it wasn't like a clean cut time, but I think naturally I kind of always leant towards doing what was inside of me, so naturally I was mixing up UK patois with my rapping anyway, because my first experiments on the mic were more kind of straight up ragga. And, still today I still I have to watch myself today when I'm in the studios, like I can still be doing stuff that a lot of people don't even understand, but it's a patois that I picked up from my mum and my dad, and it's still within me. So I don't know, it's like it's an accident, and it's also just out of a want to try something different and present some different angles,
I suppose because at that time, like we was discussing before, it was more, a lot of you guys were more inspired by the sound system and the dancehall MCs, as opposed to there wasn't many older UK rappers. So I feel like maybe that's the reason why there was a bit of a, maybe if you want to say an identity crisis, because at times a lot of the UK MCs were doing the American accent.
Yeah, but you have to understand that like just physically, if you're hearing 100 hip hop songs and or 100 MC songs and 95 of them are coming from America, it's like your ear's gonna lend towards that, that influence. It's just now that we've got the volume of releases that there can be like a communication bounce, so the influence. But I can definitely say that even amongst the time when the vast majority of UK based MCs were more kind of leaning towards an American style, there was some really strong, like straight up UK voices within that. You mentioned like people like Rodney P. Rodney P was in that presenting the UK accent with flow and style way before a lot of people were.
Now you've just announced your 6th studio album, Bleeds, right? Tell us about the project, man.
It's an album. It's coming out on the 30th of October, and it features quite a lot of different kind of production collaborations with a central producer, and it's got, the whole title is like a play on that kind of mutated formation of loads of different styles. So the intention is that you hear the bleed of every incarnation of bass culture, right from jazz up to reggae, into soul, into hip hop, into drum and bass, into grime. You can hear the whole influence of a UK kind of slanted take on bass and groove.